In Sudan, the situation there, we're talking about chemical weapons being used by SAF, that is the Sudan forces, the Sudanese forces, the government in place. What we want to also clarify is that President Ruto met RSF leader, that is Hemet. My name is Anthony Manyara, the president, Kenya University Students Organization, also doubling as the president of East African Students Union. With me is Dr. Ala Eldin from Sudan, and we have come here, of course, to discuss about the issues in Sudan and to see how best to enlighten Kenyans, more specifically young people, and also people who may not be informed of what is happening in Sudan. I think with time, we'll be able to have young people in Kenya who come from Sudan, who have experienced a lot of difficulties. They are university students who are displaced. Now they are living in Kenya. Most other students are in Egypt, others are in South Sudan, devastated, hopeless. They are not enjoying rights to education like they are enjoying here in Kenya. So basically what we are going to do here today is to showcase very many Kenyans are out there, not just Kenyans, but also in the larger picture, the East African community, what Sudan is experiencing. You know, we are enjoying a lot of rights and freedoms here in Kenya, and we may not really understand the concept, or rather the situation that is in Sudan. Very many people are dying daily. When I talk about daily, not just being shot, people are being raped, people are being maimed, people are being attacked at night, chemical weapons. But I know Dr. Aladdin, who is here today, Aladdin, will explain to us what is happening. Then we'll end also our remarks later. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Anton. And thank for having this large gathering of the people and explain to the Kenyan people what's happening in Sudan. The Sudan crisis and Sudan war have very big problem that there's much of misinformations in the media, and there is wrong narrative about the war in Sudan. Yes, the people knows that what's the human crisis and the direct humanitarian situation is there, and the people is dying. People are dying, and how much people are refugee, internally displaced. How's the health situation is there, but they don't know what's the real cause behind the war, and why is the war right now continuing and entering about the third year, and it's not stopping till now. So this is the main issue: how to stop this war, and who's the one responsible for this war, and to correct much of the wrong narrative in the media.
Thank you so much. I think what Dr. Aladdin is trying to explain to us is simple. In Sudan, the situation there, we're talking about chemical weapons being used by SAF, that is the Sudan forces, the Sudanese forces, the government in place. What we want to also clarify is that President Ruto met RSF leader, that is Hemet, General Hemet, and very many people misconstrued the reason as to why they met. In Sudan, what we need right now is peace. The peace efforts that have been advanced by Kenya, specifically our president, they are not in violation of peace terms. It is simply the fact that East Africans have looked at what is happening in Sudan, how the military is using its power to target innocent civilians. What are these innocent civilians fighting for? They want to have a democratic process whereby the country is free of dictatorship, is free of military takeover. They want these two forces, SAF plus RSF, to sit down. They have a kind of consensus, dialogue, to come up with a platform whereby all citizens can enjoy the freedoms like the way we have here in Kenya. Has it happened really? It has not happened. So, in general, we are trying to say In Africa, our countries, there's no way they can have peace when there is war. Our collective agenda and even our president, William Samoei Ruto, what he is fighting for or what he is advancing is to ensure there is cessation of war, there is peace, there is dialogue. RSF stands for that. RSF stands for peace. RSF stands for cessation of war. If at all, the Darfur is one of the key places whereby RSF has some kind of presence. But we have seen the military uh, try to use chemical weapons on innocent civilians. We have seen the other day, that is, I think, on 30th of May, whereby trucks taking food to some areas in Darfur. Is it Al Bashir?
Yeah, it's Puma area. That's in the second and third of June,
Yes.
which was attacked by the SAF Air Forces.
Yes.
Yeah, and they destroyed the WFP truck
Yes.
taking the humanitarian aid to Al Quma, civilians and Al Fashir.
Al Kuma. Now, I want to ask Kenyans if humanitarian aid is being sent to some part and regions of Sudan, and the military is being used to do strikes, to strike some of those trucks that are transporting food there. What does that mean? It means that the innocent civilians who are in some of those regions, they will not access food, basics, food, even shelter is an issue there because it's being bombed the whole place. These kind of wars, after escalating for quite a number of people, these people even raping as young as a 1 year old child. Officers of the military, they are raping women, they are raping children. They are the same people who have ensured there is a serious crisis, food crisis, education crisis, cessation of movement, violation of human rights. All we are asking as East Africans, we are asking the international community, United Nations, IGAD, African Union, East African community partners, that is the surrounding countries, that is Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Somalia, Egypt, all these countries who are in the East African bloc. I think it is the right time for them to take a neutral stand, call for peace. Like we saw the other day, the African Union chairperson in one of the talks in one of the Arab countries, he made it very clear, and we can see he's supporting the current regime in Sudan, which is quite wrong because as Africans we want to see a faction. We want to see a faction that is pro people. We want also the people who are there to be listened to. We want there to be democracy. We want the people to be given a chance. That was the whole cause of dialogue.
Yeah, but the main issue is that who started this war and who erupted the war and why. The SAF or the Sudan Armed Forces started the war in the 15th of April 2023 to bring back the Muslim Brotherhood or the NCP, that's National Congress Party regime of al-Bashir. That the people had a very big revolution over in 2018 when the people went to the streets in Khartoum and in other cities in the periphery outside Khartoum in all Sudan to get rid of al-Bashir after 30 years of dictatorship. But al-Bashir rule was a mixed rule of military and a Muslim Brotherhood or Islamist. And at that time of the 30 years of al-Bashir regime, Sudan was a nidus for much of the terrorists, the jihadists, Osama bin Laden, al-Zawahiri. So they were exporting terrorists and jihadists to the area, dealing with Boko Haram, with al-Jihad, with all these terrorist movements. When the people started to revolt, and they started in 2018 changing the regime, and we succeeded in changing the regime, and transitional period started in 2019. At that time, the two factions that now the two presidents were one, like in the under the military apparatus. But the difference between the two that the RSF at that time in 2018 they supported the revolution. When we were there in the sitting area, in the headquarters of the Army or General Command City area. We went there in the 6th of April 2019. And then the first 2 days we were attacked by security apparatus, but the RSF forces came and surround the area, and then we were not attacked by the security apparatus until this insists on the army and the headquarters of the army to do the change, and the 11th of April then declared outside of Bashir. We started a transition, but I think many people know the transition that we had like for 5 years. The first 2 years was led by a sovereign council that's shared by militant and civilians. And the head of the sovereign council for the first 2 years was to be Al Burhan, that is the head of the army, and then afterward to be shifted to the civilian. At the time of the shift to civilian, they made a coup. They didn't say the coup. Al Burhan said that it's not a coup, it's a corrective measures to increase the share of the power and so on. But Ahmed said it's a coup after he was misled by also the Muslim Brotherhood. At that time, we went back to the streets and we start again the revolution, and it resulted in a framework agreement that was signed in December, the 4th of December, 2022, and which was about to bring back a transition government and civilian regime. But unfortunately, the Muslim Brotherhood and the SAF, they started the war on the 15th of April as a last resort to bring back al-Bashir and the Muslim Brotherhood back to power. You know, I think all people or Kenya knows that al-Bashir and Abdul Rahim Muhammad Hussein and Ahmed Harun are three of the big figures of the previous regime, and they are wanted by the ICC. And even in this war, they were asked to hand over them to the ICC, but the army refused. So all the previous regime figures are freely moving and supervised and even saved and protected in self-controlled areas. It's not, nevertheless, it's not only done by the SAF, but the SAF started to do, and they are actually an apartheid regime. What they are doing right now, they are starting to separate Sudan. They are depriving the Darfur Kordofan areas, that the West areas, and the African descent tribes from their civil rights. Children have no birth certificates. They are deprived from education, from school exams. They made a currency change in Sudan, and they deprived these areas from currency, and they are not even allowed to renew their passport. If a Sudanese goes to the Sudan embassy here in Nairobi, and he was from the African descent tribes or from the Darfur or Kordofan area, and asked to renew his passport, they will not renew.
Why?
Because they think that the people are the social incubators of the RSF, and they are African descent. This is the reality of what's happening there. It's an apartheid regime.
Yeah.
Since the independence, the elite political groups of Sudan was enforcing to push Sudan towards the Arab Islamist group. And that was behind even the military opposition of late Dr. John Garang. And the many talks of peace here in Kenya, Machakos, and then Nifasha, and so on. So the insisting of having Sudan with an Islam Arab heritage and to destroy all the African heritage and even the African faith, the Christianity, is what is the SAF is doing, or the Muslim Brotherhood behind SAF is trying to insist. But we are the coalition that we made here, and that was declared in the KICC with the RSF, the civilians, and for myself, for example, from the trade union group and professions, were seeking behind the Sudan is an African nation, and it is a non-Muslim, non-Christian. It's a free nation. It's a secular nation. Anybody can perform his own religion, and there is difference between the state and the religion, and all people should have their social rights. This what SAF don't want. That's why they erupted the war. And that's why they having this apartheid regime deals of separating Sudan. People think that we in TASIS and in the new alliance are seeking to separate Sudan, but this one of the misinformation and misleading in the media. No, we are looking to unite Sudan, but in a secular country that separates religious from state. Everybody is free to perform everybody is free to take whatever religion it is, and everybody have equal social rights. And this was not soft once. That's why they use chemical weapons against people who are in Darfur, against people who are in Kordofan, against people from African descent tribes. That's why they are separate, deprive them from education, deprive them from currency, deprive them from their social rights, their certificates, renewing passports, verification of the certificates, and so on. This is the reality behind that. That's why even they shoot or they attack the humanitarian aid trucks right now because they don't want them to have even the food.
Yeah.
And this is the in the media, even in the regional and international media, there is much of misinformation that these things are done by the RSF, but in reality, it is done by the SAF. And the SAF, the issue of the SAF that throughout their 30 years of ruling the country, they have stolen all or most of the country wealth. So they are spending on this on the media campaigns they do. They have some regional media campaign that's helping them. For example, Al Jazeera channel and so on. So because these are following the Muslim Brotherhood uh, methodology or ideology. So that's why you find it's difficult to change this narrative because that narrative of the SAF and the Muslim Brotherhood is well supported and well financed.
That's beautiful, Doctor. I just want to for Kenyans to understand there is so much propaganda out there whereby our president is being affiliated with RSF, and sometimes they say RSF it's not in government in Sudan. Now, this is somehow giving the picture that the government of Kenya is not working with the current regime of Sudan. Do you have anything to shed light on that?
Yeah, it's important also to elaborate that the Kenyan government or President Ruto is not aligning with the RSF, but he wants to stop the war. The same as, for example, Dr. Abiy Ahmed. The same as for Mr. Kaka in Chad. The same as all the region. But who is not willing to stop the war is the SAF. That's why everyone who calls to stop the war will be attacked by the SAF and the media supporting as aligned to the RSF. The SAF want to stop the war in their terms, to bring back the Muslim Brotherhood and to bring back the NCP and Bashir regime. This is the way they want to stop the war. They don't want to stop the war in a fair, yes, and with the people will that they did and they go in the street in 2018 to get rid of al-Bashir and the dictatorship. No, the SAF want to end the war with the terms to bring back these people. So whenever there is somebody like a president or anybody of any country asked to stop the war in the right way, he will be declared by the SAF or the de facto government of Al-Burhan as aligned to the rebels or as aligned to the RSF. This is the reality. So this is the issue. Not all parts, not all countries of the region are looking to end the war in the right way. For example, Egyptian, no. Egypt is very much supporter of Al-Burhan because the Egyptian hand in the army and the intelligence in Sudan since the independence in 1956. That's why they want always to end the war in a way to bring back Bashir and to bring back the NCP. Yes, the power. Yeah, that's why even in the last battles in the last week, they found a lot of or many of the ammunition, the Egyptian made ammunitions in the RSF, in the SAF stores, so that the SAF and even the Egyptian are collaborating much in the gun, in the ammunitions. They sent them much of experts, and even some of the Air Force jet of the Egyptian are participating in the war beside the SAF.
So as you can hear, ladies and gentlemen, I think the current crisis in Sudan affects all of us. We normally say that injustice here is injustice everywhere. If someone is lacking food here, it's a life cut short. If someone lacks education here, we have lost a champion in the entire of our fraternity. Uh, in my opinion, I think Kenyans, before most of the cases when they read from the media, they tend to get one-sided story. It's always good to do background checks and understand how many people have died so far in the current war in Sudan. How many children have been raped? How many women have been raped? What is the extent of chemical weapons usage? How many people have been subjected to drones operations? How many buildings have been destroyed? How much infrastructure has been affected there? What are the kind of resources? Is even business environment here conducive for anyone to make money? Are people there living out without food? Are people dying out of hunger? What is worse than war? Dying of hunger. What is the international community doing to ensure the cessation of war? These are the kind of questions here in Kenya we should ask. And even our neighbors in the East African community, what are they doing to ensure there is peace in Sudan? Because I think all lives are equal. We are all equal under God. We are all equal under God, right?
Yeah, the most important thing to show or to elaborate, Anthony, is that the South or the previous regime separated South Sudan from Sudan on a religious basis. That's the war in the South Sudan.
Yeah.
Yeah, the South was advertising for the war in a religious basis that the South Sudanese are not Muslims and Jongaran are not Muslim. So they use this religious basis and religious feeling to move to mislead the Sudanese people, and they succeeded in separating South Sudan. And in Darfur, they couldn't say that these people are non-Muslim. They are Muslims. So they said that these people are not Sudanese. They are African. They are coming from the middle and the west of Africa. So they use the racial basis. That's why SAF and the Muslim Brotherhood are very bad, because they use uh, to ignite the war with the religious and the racial basis. And this is the bad thing about the South and the Muslim Brotherhood. They don't want Sudanese to live in one country with equal rights, equal social rights, and free to perform any faith.
I think Doctor said it all. I hope maybe there's few questions.
The solution should be based, or we can reach a solution by putting much pressure on SAF. Okay, because they are the one who erupted the war. They are one who spoiled even the peace talks in Jeddah first round of Jeddah, second round of Jeddah, the IGAD, the Geneva first round, Geneva second round, all were spoiled by the SAF. And you know, this war they were spoiling the peace talks in order to find an alliance with outside. They bring the Iranian, the Houthis, the Tigray. They have an alliance with CSFOR. They get weapons from Egypt. So the problem is that the people is not realizing that the SAF is the problem and the one who's spoiling these stocks. So whenever you have a much pressure to put on the SAF, then you can reach end of the war. No, the passport issue will not be an issue of the Kenyan governments. Yeah, the Kenyan government facilitate much the refugees staying here, like having the allowance of the stay. That's what a very good things and a very big help to the Sudanese refugees. But for them to have this, the Sudanese to have this renewal of passport and this other civil rights, that's why we are thinking of like declaring a government from inside Sudan, from Darfur, like the one in the Somaliland, for example. That's it. It's a political tool that will help to save the people social rights and civil rights there, and will be a political tool to do a much pressure on the South or Al Burhan side. Not only the Sudanese refugees, but Sudanese students. Many of the refugees are students, and I think they have an access to for much of the education here. The other thing is that the humanitarian support that is provided by the Kenyan government, and the will for the peace and the work for the peace is the most important issue. You cannot you cannot solve the Sudan issue without insisting on peace. And insisting on peace to reach it, it means to put much more pressure on the part that spoils the peace. That is to say, Al Burhan.
We're not seeing that, togetherness when it comes to African community. Do you think that one is
In my own opinion, I think these countries, most of why they are remaining silent because of diplomatic issues. They are fearing that maybe there will be bottlenecks when it comes to importation of issues, importation of goods and services between countries, which will affect business. There is, of course, integration issues, integration ties, trend. So all these factors, we put them together, like the way the Sudanese government responded to William Ruto meeting the RSF leader. What did they do? They stopped some importation of goods in Sudan. So if you go to Tanzania, they would want to be silent, especially right now when they have elections coming. In Uganda, they are not silent. They are simply supporting RSF. And if you go to South Sudan, they are supporting RSF because RSF is more of pro-African, pan-African. They are supporting ideologies which are supporting Africans. The Muslim Brotherhood through SAF, what they are doing is that they want to take power from the people to the military and to the rule of Brotherhood affiliated, the regime of Al-Bashir, who was ousted by a coup by the people. So what we want as East Africans is to ensure power goes back to the people, from military to the people. Which side is pro people? RSF. We want just the international community to understand that as East Africa, some of the countries who are silent, of course, they are silent because of diplomatic issues. They don't want to cause tension. But behind these countries who are silent, what do they want? They want power to go back to the people. That's why our president, when he said he wants peace in Sudan, some of them misconstrued the message. They thought maybe he's pro RSF. But what he's just saying is that he's welcoming all factions for them to come forward for the sake of peace. Do dialogue, take power back to the people. Let people elect their representatives, let people work, let people do things the right way, the way Africans have been supporting.
Yeah, what makes it strange in Sudan issue that the South that is supposed to be the official and the Sudan army is working against the people and working against the Sudan. And the faction or the belligerent that want to work for the people and want the power to be back to the people is the RSF. So that's why Anthony said that people are remaining silent because the South is stealing the name of the Sudan, and they say they are the government of the Sudan. So whenever you come to the diplomatic issue, people speak that this is the government of the Sudan, and this is the Sudan army. How could it's not working for the people? And but that's the truth that this de facto government and this army is working against the people and against the benefit of the Sudan. Because why? Because they want to keep the dictatorship that they go throughout 30 years.
I think my question I will not answer it because it's not touching on Sudan. But I will let my brother here, doctor, to address.
Um, the answer of this question is that depends on your analysis that which part or which preference is working for the benefits of the Sudan and for the people. So the countries or the presidents or the agencies, the UN agencies, should be brave enough to say who is working for the peace and who is working for the benefits of Sudanese and who is spoiling the peace platforms and who erupted the war. This is the issue. Who erupted the war and who spoils the peace is the South. So whatever measures should be taken to put a pressure on this part, despite that it's stealing the name of the Sudan or it's stealing the name of the government. It doesn't make any difference. So if you want to stop the war and you want to work for the benefit of the people, then you have to stop the part that's not working for the rest of the people. For example, in the Somaliland, I think what I've read in the media and as many of Somaliland, for example, Somaliland is very safe of terrorist attack. There is no terrorism. There is no. On the other hand, in Somalia, there is much of that. People in Somaliland, they feel more safe. They can have their business. They can have their normal life, their social life. So at the end of the day, it depends on where is the place that the people feel more safe. They can have their rights. They can enjoy their civil rights. They can enjoy the democracy. It doesn't mean that the official government or the people, it's not the official government, but the official army, or who takes the name of the official army, is the better. No. You should decide on that with the acts of the two sides. Who is welcoming peace? Who is going to the peace talks in favor to stop the war? And who is spoiling the peace talks? For example, the Sudan external affairs ministry, they freeze Sudan participation in the IGAD at the end in the December 2023 because the IGAD asked to stop the war in Sudan, and even at that time, Al Burhan welcomed the final statements of the Djibouti meeting, but the external affairs ministry in Sudan immediately they had the statements to declare that they will freeze the Sudan participation, and they are not with the Burhan welcoming. Why? Because it's controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood or